Charles Dickens' Christmas Carol is an inescapable part of the Christmas season. And yet, it's a really weird story. No one seems to ask why. Why is this story such an important part of our Christmas culture? Is it just simply we're trying to act like rich people have hearts? Is this a redemption story that gives us hope to humanize rich people? Well, let's find out. Let's get spooky. Hey, spooky people, it's your best friend Kenny here. And we have another entry in our Creepy Christmas video series. This time we're going to talk about Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, which, I mean, let's be honest, it's a ghost story. It's a ghost story set around Christmas time. So let's get into it. Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol is often billed as a tale of redemption. But really, it's a ghost story. It's a ghost story that shows that this individual, Scrooge, needs to be scared by the threat of paranormal ghosts in order to stop acting like a sociopath. In order to learn empathy, he needs to be terrified. So I don't really think it's that heartwarming of a concept to me. This is a person who, under duress, learned to be a normal human being. And I would argue that that is a major theme of this text. That is a major theme of this story that most people sort of skip past. Scrooge needed to be terrified in order to stop being a terrible person. And the idea that, well, everybody has hope to stop being horrible as long as they're terrified out of their wits by ghosts, really just sort of tells you just how bizarre this character is, the Scrooge character is. Now, it's important to understand the context in which this story was written. The story was written in Victorian-era England, which was a period of social upheaval. And it was marked by interest in supernatural, spiritualism, seances, and ghost stories. The literature of this time has a fascination with the paranormal, which stemmed, people argue, from various factors, including the rise of industrialization, which disrupted traditional social structures and fueled anxieties about the future. Advancements in scientific understanding challenged long-held religious beliefs, creating a space for alternative explanations of the universe and life after death. Charles Dickens had a fascination with the paranormal also. From a young age, he was said to enjoy ghost stories and a fondness for a magazine called The Terrific Register, which was filled with tales of horror and the supernatural. And this exposure manifested itself in his writing. In A Christmas Carol, Dickens uses the supernatural as a vehicle for social commentary and moral instruction. The ghosts that visit Scrooge are not just ghosts. They are for lack of a better term, embodiments. I realize they don't have bodies because they're ghosts, but the embodies of conscience, memory, and social responsibility. And they have a code appearing with distinct characteristics for purposes guiding Scrooge on his journey from terrible human being and sociopath to a person with empathy. The scariest ghost in the story is Jacob Marley's ghost, right? He's transparent. He's carrying a heavy chain. That chain represents the consequences of greed and indifference. And he warns Scrooge of his fate and urges him to change his ways. Then there's the ghost of Christmas past. The ghost of Christmas past is the power of memory and the importance of the past. He takes Scrooge on a journey of his past, reminding him of his lost innocence and joy. He reminds him of who he was before he became the shell of a person. The ghost of Christmas present is a jovial giant with a big torch and a huge feast. He represents generosity, compassion, and the spirit of Christmas. And he shows Scrooge the warmth and joy of human connection, contrasting it with his own self-made isolation. The ghost of Christmas future is a shrouded figure, silent and ominous, represents death and the consequences of a misspent life. And he reveals a bleak future where Scrooge is unmourned and forgotten, prompting him to fear his own mortality. Jacob Marley is Scrooge's deceased business partner, and he sets the stage for the story's exploration of the paranormal. Marley is chained, and his chains are forged by his own greed. And he quite literally warns Scrooge that this is how he'll end up. His form, which is described as transparent, embodies the consequences of a life devoted solely to material wealth. Marley's visit is not only a haunting by a ghost, but it is a haunting of the weight of past deeds and the enduring impact of one's choices on other people. His chains are the manifestation of his bad deeds and the consequences of a life lived without compassion and empathy. The next section of the story devoted to the ghost of Christmas past, is a journey through memory. He's described as a whimsical figure with a cap and a belt and a bright, clear jet of light emanating from his head. And he takes Scrooge on a journey through Scrooge's own memories. This spectral figure represents the power of the past to shape the present, reminding Scrooge of the moments of joy and connection he has forsaken in his pursuit of wealth. He reminds Scrooge of where he came from. The ghost of Christmas past's intentions are not merely nostalgic. He is a catalyst for self-reflection and a reminder of how important human connection is. By visiting his past, Scrooge begins to recognize the seeds of his miserly nature and the choices that led him to his present state of isolation. His abandonment of his empathy, that he wasn't born this way, he became this way through greed, through lying, cheating, being a miser, etc. The ghost of Christmas present is a celebration of humanity. This ghost reveals to Scrooge the warmth and joy that exists even in the smallest, humblest of homes. Even poor people, even people that don't have a lot when they have family, when they have human connection. And this ghost contrasts it with Scrooge's own isolation and miserliness, and shows Scrooge that even though he has all of these things, without empathy, without human connection, without the generosity of the Christmas spirit, he has nothing. The ghost of Christmas future is a glimpse into what happens if Scrooge keeps going down this path. And Scrooge is terrified by the ghost of Christmas future's appearance. He's a shrouded figure, and he represents death and oblivion. He shows Scrooge that without empathy, without compassion, he will be forgotten, and his life will have come and gone with no positive impact on the world. He represents a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the importance of kindness. The ghost's silence and presence amplifies the sense of dread and finality, forcing Scrooge to confront the emptiness of his future. Dickens uses these ghosts not only as a guide to Scrooge's transformation, but to also heighten the dramatic effect of the story. And the ghosts introduce a sense of urgency and consequence as part of Scrooge's redemption. A Christmas Carol shows a vision of the afterlife that is intertwined with moral responsibility. Marley's fate, burdened by the chains of his own making, are the cautionary tale. The ghosts themselves are not just ghosts, but they are agents of moral reckoning. And they guide Scrooge towards redemption and hopefully a more fulfilling experience, a more fulfilling life experience. Dickens used ghost experiences as dream sequences in his writing, suggesting that supernatural encounters could be manifestations of a character's own psyche. A Christmas Carol, the ghosts are the embodiments of Scrooge's internal struggles. The ghost of Christmas past are repressed memories and regrets, forcing him to confront the emotional wounds of his past. The ghost of Christmas present symbolizes his suppressed capacity for empathy and connection, reminding him of what he's missing out on, the joy he's missing out on, by isolating himself from others. And the ghost of Christmas future embodies his fear of death and dying unknown, reminding him that he has a legacy and that his legacy is important to him. It's almost like these ghosts are a therapist. You know, if Scrooge would have sought therapy, he probably wouldn't have had this terrifying experience. But maybe it would have taken longer to actually get some work done. Scrooge undergoes a process of psychological transformation. He confronts his inner demons, acknowledges his past mistakes, and rediscovers his capacity for love and compassion. The paranormal serves as the guide, the path for self-awareness and personal growth. The story also serves as a social commentary. The plight of the poor was exemplified by the Cratchit family, juxtaposed with Scrooge's wealth and indifference, which highlights the stark social inequities of Victorian England. The ghosts, in their interventions with Scrooge, are advocating for social change and urging consumers of this story to embrace a spirit of generosity and compassion. They challenge Scrooge's individualistic worldview and force him to recognize his responsibility as a member of society. A Christmas Carol has a profound impact on the cultural beliefs of Christmas traditions. And maybe that's why we read this story so often during Christmas time. Sure, it's a ghost story, but it's a ghost story that uses the paranormal and these ghosts in order to impart a belief in, the Christmas spirit. And what is the Christmas spirit but simply empathy, compassion, charity, taking care of people, togetherness, family, etc. So, sure, it's a weird story and it's a weird experience. And it's weird that this story has been embodied in so much Christmas content that we consume. But it also makes sense whether we're sharing this with, children or ourselves. It serves as a good reminder of, what Christmas is supposed to be. And really, what Christmas is supposed to be is a microcosm of what we are supposed to do, not only during the Christmas time. And what Christmas is supposed to be is a microcosm of how we are supposed to live our lives constantly, not just during the Christmas time, but throughout the year. Go ahead and make sure you're following me on Blue Sky and TikTok. My username is AKBrews. Make sure you are following me on Twitter. My username is AKBrews there as well. If there is a spooky story you would like me to cover, send me an email. My email address is thespookylawyer@gmail.com. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Make sure you like it. Make sure you share it. Like I said, make sure you watch this around Christmas time with your family. Make sure they take it home and watch it. Send these links to your family. Send the YouTube link to your family. Say, here you go, watch Kenny. He is so Christmas. I appreciate your support. Thank you for watching my video. And please stay spooky.